About 2007, we were at a point where the model was not really working particularly well at the Civic. And so we took a step back and really changed it very much to focus on community-based programming in addition to the nationally touring. And what has emerged in, whatever, that's 14 years. In the last couple of years, what's emerged is really the realization, and I've definitely said this plenty of times, the realization that we are not an arts or entertainment or cultural institution. We're an economic development or community development institution that happens to use arts, entertainment, and culture as the vehicle to achieve those other objectives. So when you start looking at it as a lens, through a lens that says our purpose is to develop community, or our purpose is to create economic activity, then the programming fills into that. So what are you doing here? We want these big major national, international shows. That's the high profile stuff. That's important. It's about 20% of our programming, which generates about 80% of our revenue. So what are we doing the other 80% of the time when we're not doing the 20% of high-end stuff, high international stuff and national stuff? We fill that in with all the community-based stuff. So now we have constant activity in the building, which is what the building is supposed to do. And even though we don't generate as much revenue, we are generating the activity, which then helps us to make the case in the funding community that we're serving the community in a certain way. And then once you go out and start trying to find, like on the international and the national side, the nationally touring stuff, like there's not a whole lot of choice about what that is. Those shows are playing, they're touring or they're not touring. They're playing Akron or they're going to play Cleveland or they're going to play Youngstown or wherever they're going to play. There's not a lot of, it's just not like you don't go to it's not like Walmart where you go to the shelf and go, I'll take Elvis Costello and I'll take, you don't do that. It doesn't happen that way. But on the other hand, on the community and local based stuff, the 80% of the activity, it absolutely works that way. You can sit here and say, I want to do some of this and I want to do some of this and I want to do some of this. And then you just have to figure out the financial model to make it make sense. So, and then that ends up providing often events that are free or they're $10 or they're $20. And it absolutely allows us to then have a much more diverse kind of program, which goes to the whole point of economic and community development. So that model, that concept, once we started seeing things through that lens, it just exploded and has really worked out very well for us. The restoration of the Grand Lobby and the Entry Arcade, which is the first part of the renovation, was done in 2002. So 19 years ago. The historic renovation of the Grand Lobby and Entry Arcade was just, we need to bring the building back, complete the restoration that was begun back in 2002. But what really impacted two things, I guess. One was the addition of the night stage to the north of us, 200 capacity, flexible use space. That's literally for everything we just talked about. 80% of that programming will be local. Maybe 20% will be small nationally touring acts, but 80 or 90% will be local. Local theater, local music, local comedy, spoken word events, and small corporate events, local activity. So that's definitely an outshoot of beginning to do the local community-based stuff where we were doing the audience and the performers on stage together in what we called our club or cabaret setup. Which was cool because people liked being on stage with the artist. But because that was so successful, it led directly to the addition of what ended up being a $4 million expansion funded by Knight Foundation. So that was very direct. And then the other piece of it was the commitment to making the outside of the building as much of an asset as the inside of the building, which was really about people like walking into the theater and going, oh my God, this place is amazing. I had no idea. Because if you just drove by, it just looked like an old brick warehouse. It was terrible. So that was a big piece of it. And there used to be a lot of pride in that. Like, oh my God, people are so blown away. Except, what does that really do? I mean, like you've got all these people, if there's 2 million people that live within 50-mile radius of downtown Akron, maybe 5 or 10% in a couple of years come to the Civic Theater at the most. That means there's 95% of the people that are driving by our building and never even entering the building. So how are we serving that group of people? So the idea was, if the outside of the building can be an asset in and of itself, nobody ever enter the building to get it, then that would be a great thing. And that collided with our involvement and participation in the Akron Civic Commons movement, which was all about public space and economic integration. And so, what's more available for economic integration than public art, right? I mean, it's just there. And so it just sort of all collided, and it was like, great, we're just going to put murals on the outside of the building as part of this project. And then we decided, we're going to put a video wall and let people watch what's happening inside the building while it's happening without even buying a ticket. So we'll do that wherever we can. And that video wall is going up this summer as part of the project. So that was really all about the idea of being a part of drawing people into downtown without necessarily requiring them to come and enter the building.